Okay, boom. We are alive, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to have some market meditations. For those of you that are new to the channel, welcome. For the all longtime Bear family members, it's great to see you all again. Really exciting stuff going on. We'd had word of Facebook announcing the metaverse thing probably about 2.5 weeks ago. Sadly, I have not a lot, but some of the conversations I'm under are just like strictly NDA, like legal. Anyways, the point of this conversation is huge impulse in a lot of the metaverse tokens today. Star Atlas jumped, Axios jumped. We saw a lot of the character games start to do really well. But where we want to start today is our longtime favorite, Bitcoin. Boom, there it is on the daily chart. I like to look at these larger time frames. Right now, what you can see is the pattern that we have been following, which is a really nice accumulation, followed by an SOS, a last point of supply, sign of strength, and another last point of supply. We usually get about 2 of these before we get the final kickoff top. Based off this nice gap that we see here on the right-hand side of the VPVR, I would suspect that we could get a final dip down to 55,000. But if we look a little closer here, we're actually seeing some positive strength on what is usually referred to as a bull flag. Now, this is a falling channel. That's what a bull flag is, a falling channel effectively, that has now broken above the top of the channel. So this is actually quite bullish. If we manage to stay above the channel here, where we have the blue dot, and actually get above the blue dot, which would be something like this, close above the point of control here, this red line, stay above this, and we're likely going to continue higher. I think the next impulse wave that we get for Bitcoin here is probably going to push us up to around 84 to 95,000. So I think it'll be a really quick move where we do something like this. We go, let's see, grab our little drawing, go like this, and up to around 85, 95, and then form another reaccumulation channel like that, and then bang, up into the $140,000 area. Now, I personally believe that that's the effective end of the bull market, at least temporarily. Effectively, if you know that you have a good asset on your hands, any price is a good price, and you should be aiming at long-term accumulation essentially anyways. It makes the game so much easier. So one of the things we want to look at here is some of the fundamentals behind this. And one of the easy, clear routes that we like to go is from this data here. This is the percent of balance of Bitcoin on all exchanges today. So one of the reasons why this is important is because depending on the supply, liquidity that is on the open market, it becomes more and more volatile as the liquidity decreases. So here, the bright jump orange spike up was the previous down trend in between May and August. And as soon as that supply disappeared, you started to see the market price rise. And again, huge chunks of supply taken off the market. And we are now sitting at the lowest supply for Bitcoin during this bull market. Now, we did see a big chunk come back onto the market. So there are clearly big sellers in this area. But more importantly, the thing that I think that everyone needs to recognize from the investor standpoint is a really simple metric. The United States Federal Reserve, not part of the government, is going to continue to print enormous amounts of money. I think in the bill that they just put on the table on the House Senate committee hearing today was like $4 trillion more or some crazy like this in spending in the next 9 months. And that is absolute insanity. This is what hyperinflation looks like. There's a really good book called The Dying of Money. I highly suggest anyone take a read. It goes over kind of the story that took place during the Weimar Republic's hyperinflation and what that looked like during the process. So we're actually seeing a lot of similarities today that we are seeing in the Weimar Republic back then. And this is because once a government starts to go into an inflationary process, they usually try to rein in the capital functions, right? So you see a lot of people like, oh my God, Elon Musk is so rich. What the problem is they don't understand is that all that liquidity for people like Elon Musk to appear to be that rich, because again, you have to remember that most of that is illiquid assets of his own. He's not going to just all of a sudden sell all of SpaceX and Tesla and Solar City. So it's not actually liquid capital. Those are equity positions that give his net worth such an enormous value. And if he were to actually sell them, he would destroy the price. So you have to understand a little bit more about how the game is played. And really, the Federal Reserve is like the evil demon. And what they do is they produce a lot of content pointing the blame at the rich. This happened in the Bolshevik Revolution as well. The governments point the fingers at the rich people. Meanwhile, it's actually the governments who are doing all the crap that's destroying everything. So because we know the governments are destroying everything, not rich people, it's not Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk's fault that they created something productive that makes their net worth rise dramatically. It's the fact that the governments are ruining the currency that also create these what appear to be such dramatic growths in people's portfolios and their positions and their net worth overall. My net worth since the beginning of the pandemic has increased significantly because of that. Now, I'm not one to really spend much money. It's just not my favorite thing to do. I like sitting outside and meditating. That doesn't cost me anything. But that same function for almost anybody who is well educated knows that the market, when it prints money, is going to send asset prices into the fucking moon. So we see that everywhere. We see asset prices rising towards the moon. Bitcoin just happens to be one of our favorite assets. And because of that, I think from a beginner investor standpoint, you should just basically always be buying and never selling. You think you might be able to buy here and sell there and then buy back, but you won't, and you can't. And most people fuck that up. So just don't even try, especially if it's in your first few years. Now, if you got 5 to 10 years under your belt and you want to get a little bit more risky and you like to fuck around, you got capital that you can swing towards the moon and not give a shit about, then hey, that's a great position to play too. As a matter of fact, 1inch performed really well for us. That was a 6-figure trade in a very short period of time. But I also had 6 figures on the risk just for that one trade. It has nothing to do with the rest of the portfolio. So in this tails I don't lose much, that's on how much everyone has to lose every month. So under this guiding light and this thesis, asset prices are going to continue to rise. The US government and the Federal Reserve, well, I guess it's not the US government, the Federal Reserve is going to continue to print enormous amounts of money. The Chinese government is going to continue to print enormous amounts of money. The Canadian government, all these dumbass try to pretend that they know what they're doing, that take money from you and then give it away and spend it on crap that you don't need, are destroying the value of everything. Therefore, everybody runs to the only safe haven, assets, productive assets, or even some of the better ones. That's why we're huge fans of things like Avalanche and Ethereum. Now, everybody's super excited. Ethereum is just breaching into its previous all-time high. I do suspect we will get an LPS that tests probably a little bit deeper to around 3,600 before going much higher. Again, it's going to move very similar here to Bitcoin, where you have a secondary SOS and a secondary LPS that comes along that line there. I'm drawing a little bit of extra into the future here, but something like this. So I do suspect we're going to have a drop down in Ethereum. It does look like we're kind of peaking out. We're getting a lot of sell pressure here. We can see that by the supply signature at the moment. But all in all, the markets are primed for the continuation of this bull market. Back since Ethereum was around $400 to $600, I've been calling for around $8,000 Ethereum at the peak of this market. I myself am not as bullish on Ethereum as I am on Avalanche. Now, we could get into why that is. I'm not a technical person. I rely on intuition to some degree. Although I do like technology and I do my best to study and understand the value behind everything, there's just this weird feeling I have that Avalanche is going to take a lot of steam away from Ethereum because they're still building the car while it's out on the racetrack. Meanwhile, Avalanche is already out there doing its warm-up laps and kicking ass, ladies and gentlemen. So it's hard to say. You have over, $16 billion in TVL that has moved to Avalanche in the last 2.5, 3 months. All-time high for new C-chain addresses, etc. So it's very likely, in my opinion, that Avalanche is going to take a lot of the wind out of the sails for Ethereum. Now, Ethereum's got a great brand. Vitalik is brilliant. He could maybe do with an extra orange. I don't know how you have $1 billion and can't afford to eat more healthily. Whatever. So because of that, I think the smart thing to do is be diversified. I actually don't know what the future holds. So I do hold Ethereum and Avalanche and Solana. This is what diversification looks like. Diversification looks like I actually don't know what the future is going to hold. The majority of my portfolio is still in Bitcoin. But I love these plays. This entire sector reminds me of venture capital, and it represents the greatest single opportunity for the average individual to participate in the largest financial transfer in history. When they are destroying the dollar at such an incredible rate, getting your hands on any assets early is going to do very well. Again, I highly suggest reading the book, Dying of Money. I'll try to make a book list on the website because I know a bunch of you guys keep asking, and it's just not our primary focus. We're focused almost entirely on venture capital right now, trying to find the cool shit early. That's why we had such a great conversation with Miko from Gumi Cryptos, trying to find the projects before they are even projects. Effectively, we had Avalanche on the table a year before they even launched. We try not to give it to you guys too early either, because then you have nothing to do with it. In fact, nobody could have done anything with it because it didn't launch yet. So try to be somewhat relevant with the timing and the release of the information. Solana also looking very powerful here. We've stepped up near the top of the trading range. One of two good things could happen. We could break above the box, come back down here, and then see a much higher move for Solana as well. Although based off the sentiment we're hitting in the box right now, we could still come down for another previous test before continuing higher. I do believe all these trading ranges that we are looking at right now are accumulation ranges, much like we had seen here. Here's a beautiful example of an accumulation range where Solana, boom, they just keep trying to sell it down. And when you have these triple bottom, bang, 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 this is how the comp man works. They'll run the price up and then they'll dump on the open market, dump on the open market, dump on the ARP, and look, every time they created a really stable floor around that $22 mark. This is what a beautiful accumulation channel looks like. Understanding the Wyckoff trading ranges can make you an enormous amount of capital because you start to recognize the macro cycles that are in play when you're investing. And when you are investing, if you recognize the macro cycles, which are the most important, you are going to do very well. I could basically guarantee that if everyone follows a simple strategy, now this is not financial advice, I can't actually guarantee this because that would put me on a legal law hook, but I would speculate very highly that if you follow a simple strategy of investment and you make consistent investments, even if it was just Bitcoin, you will turn yourself into a multimillionaire, even if it's only like $100 to $200 a month. Because when hyperinflation really starts to kick, this is going to be ridiculous. And this is one of the things that I always liked. It was like a meme. It was like, oh, so you're telling me that I can trade Bitcoin for dollars to buy a house? And then it's like, oh, but you won't have to, Neo. It's like, and this is the problem, is when we get to a point where real hyperinflation starts to exist, the dollar will become worthless. Now, one of the strongest forces fighting against inflation is deflation. And we've talked about this many, many times, and inflationary forces. One of the most important parts to recognize is the video game sector. Now, I am hugely bullish on the metaverse and the blockchain game video sector. Once we invested in Star Atlas, I was like, okay, I understand what's happening here. This is the quickest route to adoption that we are going to have is going to come from the video game sector. And we are largely focused on that now. There's been great launches like Chimeras. I jumped into that the other day. We're going to be jumping into Tryhards. There's a tech team on the table a year before it launched. So understanding technology you can get to before there's even a price or a market cap or a launch if you're looking closely. And that's what we like to do. So because of this, what I want to do is continue to go over and actually look at the broad market sentiments that are taking place right now. So for those of you that are new to any type of investing or the markets, I guess, at large, we still love looking at the traditional marketplace. Which is what we're going to do now. The S&P 500 is screaming into new all-time highs. Now, a lot of people are confused by this. A lot of market pundits are like, oh my God, it's going higher. It's going to crash soon. No, it's not going to crash. This market is not going to crash. This is going to be the first time the market crashes upwards because the dollar is worth nothing. It is effectively a useless asset. It is not productive. I can't sit on it and earn any interest. They're telling me that, I'm basically, if I hold on to it, it's a liability at the rate that they're printing it. And they are printing it at an extraordinary rate. The US dollar is a fucking hot potato. You do not want to hold on it for very long. So because of that, the asset prices are going to continue to skyrocket. The other thing that is important to recognize here is that we went between 1997 and 2014 to create a 2-decade-long accumulation channel. 2 decades of accumulation within the market before it started to break out and continue. And people think that the market's going to crash anytime soon. No. Do your homework. When this stuff starts to happen, we've got at least 5 to 10 years of this ridiculous bull market left. The market is going to scream for another 5 to 10 years. Will there be minor corrections? Will it do something like this? Maybe form another reaccumulation channel before going much higher? Yes. There will be things that look like a crash to some people, but they're not. For instance, if you go back and you look at 2001 and 2008, everyone's like, oh my God, the crash. Oh my God, the crash again in 2008. But the problem is, most people do the wrong thing. This is where they sell here. They bought here and they sell here, and they buy here and they sell here. Because like, oh my God, the market has crashed, not realizing that the market is actually just creating an accumulation range that you should in fact have been buying every fucking day that you could possibly get your hands on assets, because the same story has been repeating itself for generations. Every government has eventually totally destroyed their currency. Go back to Rome. What happened to them? Same thing. They slowly degraded their currency by adding metal instead of silver, and eventually over time inflation caught up and Rome fell. This is the beginning of the end of the United States dollar and, well, I don't know, at least the dollar. We can't say the United States economy or the country, because there's a lot of brilliant people and people create value, right? Money doesn't make value. People make value. People hallucinate the value of something. That's why art pieces can sell for such extraordinarily high numbers, is because that's what the person decided it's worth to them. Once we understand that the value of something is basically an irrelevant function based off a hallucination of the society, then this game becomes a lot easier to understand. These market prices are going to continue to rise because they are destroying the thing that we used to think was money. There is no money. The US dollar is not a money. It is a currency. And they're proving that day over day over day by printing it at astronomical rates. So one of the things we can do here, and we like to do this frequently, is take a look at the M2 monetary supply. And when you do that, you can see how closely related the printing of money is to the S&P 500. So if you're ever confused as to why the S&P 500 is going up and going to continue to go up, it's because this age-old story has not changed. Humans have this apparent inability to totally fail. So here we go. Oh, wait, hold on. I wasn't even looking. There we go. All y'all could see was my face. Here's the S&P 500. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Always with the face share. Iris, please come help push my buttons. I always forget. Hey, check. Is this working yet? Okay, here we go. Orange line is the monetary supply. White line is the S&P 500. They are almost identical. And again, here's the things that scared people. Not stock. They thought these were stock market crashes. No, these were part of the accumulation range. Once you understand that this game has not changed for generations, it's actually really easy to play. Buy assets. Every chance that you have the liability of a US dollar on your hand that you don't have to spend it on buying assets, and you will do extraordinarily well. This has worked for basically 100 years at least that I have recorded data on, probably longer based off how many countries have totally destroyed currencies in the past. Owning assets is a smart way to go. I'm going to take a look at a few of your guys' questions. It's 4:20. Check that out. It's 4:20. Yes, I was meaning to screen share. I'm sorry, guys. Normally I have my other computer here so I can see both screens, but I left a lot of my studio stuff at the house in the city right now, and I only have my small laptop, so I keep making little baby mistakes. Let's do an Ask Me Anything for the next 15 minutes. Yeah. Thanks, guys. I didn't realize I wasn't showing the chart until afterwards. Next time, just I'm going to give one of you guys my my number here. Call me up. Let me know I'm making a little bit of a fool of myself, and we'll move forward. Okay. Let's take a look at some of your guys' thoughts. Bitcoin hasn't hit a new all-time high yet if you take monetary supply. Yeah, it has hit a new all-time high versus US dollar, but you're talking about incorporating inflation, but that's exactly why we are sitting on such volatile and interesting assets. In fact, it's probably the only asset that's really kept up with inflation in the last 3 to 5 years. Care to share your thoughts on China's developing Evergrande? Clinton, fun question. I did a thought experiment video on Evergrande about a week or two ago, and I said the same thing. China's just going to bail them out. There's no end to the money printing at this point because they will lose confidence in their government if they let a collapse like that happen, and the CCP cannot afford a further collapse in confidence of their ecosystem. Now, I don't know much about China's ecosystem, so maybe I shouldn't talk like that, but effectively, as far as I can tell, all of these governments are going to print money to instill some sort of confidence so that they likely probably try to ration money to people. So I think Evergrande is just noise. It's not, news is generally almost always noise. The sentiment here is exactly the same. Money printing is going to run these markets. It's run these markets for generations. Love you, man. Tio, you're the greatest. Thank you, guys. I appreciate all the content, all the support. What about 1inch? We did over 100%, closed out that trade. Thank you very much. I'll take my cash. I'll move it into something else. I had fun with 1inch. It was a long time there. Stayed focused, stayed patient, paid off. But I'm much more interested in video games at this particular moment. Other than DEXs, I think a lot of the video games are going to come. Well, we'll save some of this stuff, but I think in-game DAOs, in-game lending, in-game revenue share, in-game marketplaces. I think the video games are really going to be the leader to the development of the UI, the UX, and the onboarding of the billions of users that do not currently already have bank accounts. And it's allowing them to invest their time like a miner for playing video games to earn the assets in the game that are worth something. And I believe that this is the cutting edge of user adoption. Now, the DeFi sector is amazing, but I'm still much more interested in how the video game sector adopts DeFi because I think it's going to onboard billions of users. Let's see. Is there a way to hold stocks decentralized in case of a bank collapse? No, that's why I don't own anything in the traditional market aside from property and equity in my own companies and a few other traditional companies that I've invested in that my friends have started because I believe in them and I don't really care. They can sit on the equity for 10 years. I don't care. Whatever. Let's see how they do. That's a good investment strategy. Any thoughts on Polkadot auctions? I'm not a fan of Polkadot. A lot of people are big fans of DOT. Avalanche and Solana are way better technology. Dots, I don't know. You want to buy a Renault? Would you like to buy a Chevrolet Sprint? Some people like that product. Not my jam. I'm actually like more of a Toyota and a Nissan fan just because they're so freaking indestructible. Let's see. Budsport says, I've been in AMP and Anchor for a while now. AMP has pumped beautifully, so I'm sitting with the free money, but Anchor has done nothing within a year. Any thoughts? Again, heads I win, tails I only lose a little. I'm trying to stay focused where I think the most momentum is going to be. And at this moment, it's coming from basically the metaverse. It's coming from the video game sector. I think it's where a real user adoption finally comes from for all this technology, because it's an on-ramp for people to earn money in any number one of these cryptos. Effectively, they could trade it for whatever, right? They could be earning in Ethereum, they could trade it for Bitcoin, and that's the beauty of this whole sector. Then they don't need a bank card, then they don't need a bank anything. They don't need to KYC or AML for any of their video games that they're playing, and people around the world. And this is what was so amazing about Axes, is just to show the true potential of an on-ramp for a group of people that normally can't get even a regular bank account. So the banks going long video games. Alan Ernest says, so you're saying that the bear market isn't going to be a bear market? No, what I'm saying is that the bear market shouldn't be looked at as a bear market. What bear market should be looked at is the best time to accumulate assets. And this is why so many people get this part of the video game wrong, is they think when the assets are going down that they shouldn't be acquiring more, but that's exactly what you should be doing. Look at the history here. When the market is down, you should be buying more assets, right? Oh no, the market collapse of 2008. And we'll use the S&P 500, even though I don't like stocks. But every time the market is in what people call a bear market, that means a buying market. You should be buying into the downtrend because then you have more room for upside, less risk to the downside. People have confused the enjoyment of the bear market. The bear market is the best time to be in the market because you can accumulate when all the fucking Dogecoin people have left. They've lost their money. They've been wiped out. They're back working at, I don't know where people even work nowadays, playing a video game to earn money. So, although, mind you, I think one of the other great things about this, actually, hold on. Let me be very clear here. One of the things I think that is also very unique about this process is that the video game sector is going to teach people to acquire assets for their time instead of currency. There is a revolution afoot here, and this is one of the most interesting parts about this deflationary story. You have people making more money from playing video games than from working at a regular job. It's a ton funner to play Axes than it is to work at McDonald's and get greasy shit all over your face, sell the fats all day. So what are you going to do? You're going to play the video game that pays more, right? This is what's going to happen. That's what deflation is. Deflation is when someone can earn a living doing something that is non sequitur like that. Did I say that right? Non sequitur? I'm not sure. I feel like I used that correctly, but I'm not sure. Someone fact check me. When you can make money playing a video game, more money than you would by working at a store or working at a regular 9-to-5 job, like working as a cook, working as a dishwasher, whatever menial jobs that most people work at when they start, they're not going to do that. They're going to work in the metaverse. They're going to work in a technology company. So this is a really important part and a pivot for a lot of younger generations who are playing video games and now potentially about to earn the network participation growth of that game. It is unimaginable what this is going to do to all of the business sectors. This is going to destroy a lot of business as we know it today, because how are they going to keep up? How is they're going to go robotic. McDonald's is going to go robotic, right? So what's most interesting about the bear market is understanding we want more assets when they're cheaper, but understanding that deflation in this inflationary story is the greatest part. The inflation part is, they're just printing dollars. The deflation part is the fact that people can earn more money on a video game because of the fucking stupid middleman that has come along in the banking system and made it so that almost everybody is poor. You don't look at Elon Musk like he fucked up. No, the government screwed you. The Federal Reserve screwed you. The Central Bank of Canada screwed you, not the rich people. The rich people just learned how to take advantage of producing something valuable. Aim your guns at the politicians. Hold on, I don't want to incite violence. Aim your non-violent protests at the politicians and leave the rich people alone. They're providing value to the world. They don't have the most money. The Federal Reserve does. And they just print it out and give it out like candy to all their hedge fund buddies. They bail out companies that have basically failed a long time ago. If you're going to aim at the corrupt politicians who allow for enormous amounts of spending. Don't aim at the rich people. So again, that's what happened to the Bolshevik Revolution. Exactly the same thing happened. They aimed at the rich people instead of the government that fucked them. Hopefully people learn, but we're not super great at that. Bro, I see your vision. Thank you, Alan Ernest. I love you. T over present. That's hilarious. That's why we love Axes. I'm a big fan of all the video game sectors here. I just think it's super cool to see. This is going to be amazing. Is that bullish for BAT? Great question, Wendell. So Wendell's asking about BAT, which is the basic attention token. And in 2017, I'll give you a little story. My partner at the time, kind of famous artist, over 1.4 million followers or something. I got her to write a few posts on Steam and she made like $15,000 from those 3 posts effectively. In 2017, I thought adoption was going to come in the social form, but it's not. I don't think it is. See, this is where I think I was wrong. And this is why I don't think BAT is as valuable as the video game sector. even though everyone's using the internet, like I use the Brave browser and we earn BAT, you can tip with BAT, it's cool, but I think it's going to massively underperform the potential of a video game that really you got to remember, there's 2 billion people playing video games. It's a $180 billion a year business. It's bigger than the movie industry. It's bigger than the music industry. Damn, son. Let's see. Come on, Arcane. Somebody has to do it. That's fair. That's fair. All this extra bandwidth will be needed for the video games. Theta is a bandwidth token. I know there's a lot of Theta fans in the family as well. And I know a good buddy of mine, Miko, is a big fan of Theta as well. I like Akash network. I like this cloud computing. Here's another $400 or $300 billion a year business. When the bear market comes in again, I'm going to be scooping up a ton of Akash. I can't tell what it's worth today, but I'll wait until I can revise my sentiment. The best projects to invest in the metaverse sector. Well, if you're in our private group, we just produced a beautiful PDF that goes over our 5 favorite early stage projects. Star Atlas has been one of my favorites. We had them on before they launched. I'm a big fan of Michael. Shout out to Michael Wagner and Pablo. Really great thinkers. Effectively, anytime I look at one of the fun things about Satoshi Nakamoto is that he was anonymous, right? So you're betting on an anonymous character. And what's unique about an anonymous character is you can give that anonymous person character traits that they may not necessarily actually have. So everybody has their own version of who Satoshi is or was. But what I like about where you know the founder, like where you are like, oh, it's an Elon Musk or some shit. Like, oh, it's Michael. I can tell that particular people have the steadfast nature to go through all it's going to take, and Mike Tyson fights, as Etienne said, to get there. And inevitably, that's what leads to success. The Nintendo video game franchise was originally a goddamn board game. If their founder didn't have the balls to pivot and go, hey, it's not just about board games, it's about games. Games! This is where Kodak fucked up. Kodak was like, yeah, we're into photos, like photos you can hold from a picture you would take, instead of being like, hey, we're into photos. I don't care how you get that photo. I love photos. Kodak fucked that shit up. Blockbuster, same thing. They're like, no, we want movies that you can hold, that you can take home. And they totally fucking missed the point that people just want movies in the easiest way that they can get them. So I try to look for founders that recognize the broader concept of like, hey, this is a game, or this is about movies, or this is about music, or this is about community. And that's really where we try to lean in on. You know, a lot of it's hit or miss. I actually don't know in the future who is going to be the winner of a lot of this stuff. But I do know that if you continue to show up here and you make good investments, you're going to do really well. Let's see. We'll take a look at a few more of your guys' thoughts. I love going through these with you guys. Elner says, you make me laugh. I love that. I'm glad. Happy to share some jokes. How can a meme coin like SHIB get so big? Oh, great question. It's the same reason why GameStop or AMC or Bed Bath & Beyond can go so high is because if a bunch of people speculate on the price of a liquid product, the price will appear to go up. Although I would be really interested to see what the liquidity is. I look, there's a lot of wash trading. There's a lot of garbage trading that's making the SHIB price do that. So I'm not sure. That's a lot of wash trading. I'm surprised Coinbase even listed it. Like if you go and you look at some of the exchanges that say they've got $100 million or a few $100 million of trading happening there, you're like, never heard of this no-name brand before. Looks fake shit to me. So if you speculate, people can speculate. Pets.com in 2001 or 2000 was worth a shit ton of money until it then was not. And that's why fundamentals are important. You sort of sound like Dave Chappelle. Well, hopefully I can grow big enough to have the non-cancel culture not cancel me. Or like, actually no one could cancel me. All you Bear family, you guys are such diehards. I know that you'll stick with me all the way to the end, even if we have to function just on Odyssey or BitChute or something. Okay. So yes, meme coins can do that because of speculation, and because if enough people speculate, the price will go up. It has nothing to do with underlying fundamentals. And again, there's a shit ton of wash trading there. You go to CoinGecko, look at the volume. It's not it doesn't look healthy to me. I try to like look at the pulse of the thing. You're like, oh, this is being kept alive by life support somehow. Like this is life support. Anyways, what's going on with volume? Why so low? Turn up your volume. No one else has had a problem, so I'm assuming it's you. I'm going hard on Atlas and Illuvium. Nice, good find on Illuvium. I missed that one. I like Ember Sword. That one looked cool too. D Horizon was another one that popped over the edge. Tryhards, Chimeras, Krabata is an Avalanche one we're looking at. I'm just going headlong first. Again, guys, if you think that you found a cool video game, especially if it's on Solana, send it to us, especially if they're early. It's our favorite. Do you agree that most of the crypto gaming projects aren't quite there yet? Great question. Another great question. You guys are on fire with questions today. Okay. It costs around $265 million to create the game Grand Theft Auto 5. And they made around $4 billion after that expenditure from the sale of that video game. It took them like 3 years, I think, when I was reading to create the whole Grand Theft Auto universe that people are currently in. So yes, a lot of games aren't there yet, but look at Axes. This is about having multiple angles to play your game, whether it's on mobile. Again, mobile first is going to be a really large lead indicator here for what that looks like. But if we go from that mobile first angle, a video game could be highly graphic intensive, but if you can use the NFTs to do like Pokemon type battles or League of Legends type battles. So it really depends on how these companies and communities really decide to create the game. Now, one of the most important parts about this is the fact that right now you have a new potential for the DAO infrastructure within the video games, right? So normally a video game is just made by the people who make the games, and the game makers have been a big gatekeeper. I've jumped on phone calls with a bunch of esports teams while going through our due diligence. Yeah, that's right. We actually do research and study in the back end. That's why I'm not always on TV shows talking. We chatted with a bunch of esports teams, and the game sector itself is the middleman. And one of the fascinating things about blockchain is it removes the middleman. So right now, what you're going to see is a high likelihood that the people that end up creating the games are actually the people that end up playing it through these DAOs. And you're going to in-game voting, in-game voting on what gets built next in the game. It's going to be fascinating. It's probably the greatest evolution for video games that we'll ever see, and it is going to expedite the process of the DAO infrastructure, revenue sharing, DeFi, everything. I truly believe, and this is just my personal sentiment, that the video game sector or the game play to earn sector is the adoption curve that we had always been looking for in terms of getting the most amount of people into the crypto sector fast. Clinton had a question I saw. It says, at the end of the temporary bull run, Bitcoin and Ethereum bottom thoughts. We don't try to call tops or bottoms. If you go back in time, Clinton, actually we'll do that together. Let's jump in the time machine today, ladies and gentlemen, and go look back in time and ask ourselves this same question. Now, the reason why a lot of people would be asking this question is because they want to know how to take advantage of their portfolio while it's up so high. The downside is it's very easy to get washed out within that process, not get back in, when the best thing to do would be just to buy. So let's go back, and we're going to fly all the way back here to 2011, 2012 when I bought my first Bitcoin. Boom, I bought my first Bitcoin somewhere along this run. This first move up into the Cypritic, around 2012, 2013 is around $90 Canadian, which is probably around, what is that? It was like $70 American the first time. So right at the bottom of this trading range. Now, here's what happens, right? Let's say you buy 10 Bitcoin at $100. You spent $1,000 on Bitcoin, and all of a sudden it goes up to $1,000. And you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I've spent $1,000 and I now have $100,000. Right? Because 10 times 10 is 1,000. And then it comes down. You're like, oh my God, no. What should I do? And you're thinking, fuck, if I had sold here, I could buy back here all this Bitcoin. Well, yes, that's a great sentiment. But the problem is it's almost impossible to do that. These are such short-lived moments in time. The ultimate high is very short-lived, usually lasts a few days, but the low lasts longer. So what you can effectively do is just buy and only buy If you are under 70 years old, you should pretty much be in only a buying format. And then had you just kept buying all the way up the high and then all the way back down to the low and just kept buying this whole time, what you end up with is a perfect mediated price, so that you're buying. I know it sounds fucking boring, right? Like, well, Tio, how do I make profits if I'm always buying? Your portfolio is not fucking revenue. You should be doing other things to generate revenue in your life, because your portfolio because again, here's what people make the mistake. They sell, even if you get close to the top, and then they don't rebuy back, even though they think they're going to. It's very difficult to do. The best strategy for every new investor is basically just to accumulate assets, because they're going to print money faster than you can make it. So if we know that they're going to faster than you can make it, don't try to leave the asset, because you're going to end up holding the bag. Wow, we've been rising on a very limited amount of supply. We are in a very, very bullish part of the market right now. If we see some big supply checks come in, we could go much higher. So we could go to around, look, there's clear evidence that we could go up to like $240,000 Bitcoin. Although I feel pretty good saying about 140 grand. That's my guess. $140,000 Bitcoin. But the bottom is irrelevant. Ethereum could be worthless at the next bull market, aside from NFTs, because Avalanche or Solana could replace it in terms of what it does. Bitcoin is the first time that it's ever gotten to a point where it's basically reliable now. Oh no, that whole time I did it again. For fuck's sakes. I did it again. I did that whole thing again without showing the goddamn screen. Okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm done for the day. That's it. I'm done, guys. I apologize. It was too much. No, I know I didn't share the screen. I fucked up there. I apologize. I'm going to move all my studio gear back into the bear cave, so I have my second screen so I can tell when I'm doing dumb shit. You guys are fantastic. This is Tio with the Arcane Bear. I'm going to leave it at that, at a Tio fuck up, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.